Thank you for joining me on Being Paleo, and I'm Professor Amy Keeley. Please make sure that you watch all the way to the end, because obviously I've got a lot to share. I want to help people, but also I'm trying to do giveaways. I want my logo to mean something, so hopefully you can get my logo as you go through this journey of being paleo with me. It's about unpacking this modern life and realizing that we're not successfully living as human beings. We're under stress, we're anxious, and now we're having to be medicated because we're stressed and anxious. So let's go back to the basics and learn from our ancient wisdom how to be able to live more healthier, well-balanced lives, and in harmony with nature and with human beings, and what our bodies and minds really need in life versus what we've been marketed to that is what we think we need. And again, as I've said a couple of times before, I'm an award-winning marketer, and I know I'm in my philosophy mode. But as a philosopher, as I am in my PhD program, I see this alignment with my marketing and how we've been marketed to, that this modern world is helping us when it's actually failing us. So that's what the whole idea is being paleo is about. It's less about the paleo plan, more about how ancient people were living and thinking, because we've lost knowledge along the way. And how do we go back and find it? Because that's what philosophers are on this discovery, is how did we lose whatever it was that we had done successfully for millions of people as human beings? And you see that when you look 15,000 years ago at mummified remains. They're very sophisticated in how ancient people were making rope, how they were making their food sources and grinding them. Obsidian knives, for example, are sharper than some of the knives that they use in surgical equipment. So they were very sophisticated. And you can look at the Peruvians. They were doing brain surgery thousands and thousands of years ago. So there's obviously some knowledge that we've lost. But more importantly, the knowledge is that they were living in harmony with nature, which is why we can't find many of the remnants of their lifestyles. We see it in their stonework and what happens to get preserved. But the answer is they lived a life that was not destructible. They weren't living with plastics and certain types of hypermetals. They were living a very balanced life that was in harmony with nature and in harmony with people. So that's what this design of this program is about getting back to our roots, our literal roots, to Paleolithic man, to where those tribal and clan communities were much different. I don't think people understand the leadership back then was different than leadership today. There is no leadership today. Hopefully I can be that leader that changes what the definition of leadership is based on ancient practices. But today we're going to look at this motivational is birds of a feather flock together. So what does that mean? Birds of a feather flock together makes sense, right? You have robins that all tend to stick together. You have ducks that all stick together. And why? So birds of a feather stick together. Partly because that's their community. When you look at a bird, you see that birds are very distinctive. How many different species are there of birds? There's some solitary birds, but there's also birds that stick together, and they stick together for protection. And that's one thing that we don't do in society very well. I mean, we do have our tribes, but I have found that even our tribes that we have today are disingenuous. You've got people or families that are supposed to be thicker than blood that are not thicker than blood. And I know that because in my own family, it's not the family that my grandparents created, either on my dad's side or on my mother's side. They're not tight-knit. They are very superficial. They are just exclusionary, not inclusionary. They're very cliquish. That's what it means. That if you're not a part of the clique, then you don't really fit in. They'll say snide comments that hurt your feelings. And again, feelings are hurt, or you can be offended. But a family should be that, yes, I can be offended by you. I can be offended by your very existence. But at the end of the day, we're blood, and you kind of get over yourself. And there are some things that have been done in my family that I'm trying hard to get over, but I'm not ready to let it go because they're not good human beings. And that's what you'll see me keep saying all this time, is that this new tribe that I'm creating around me are people that fit this narrative of what I'm looking for in my life. And what am I looking for? I'm looking to go back and make my life more simple. I'm trying to make sure that if anybody damages me, hurts me, whatever, that I'm very defensive. I'm not just myself and protecting myself as a single female. I have no one else to protect me but me. But also that other people in life, I'm protective of them. I'm a health advocate right now, and I'm going to have to, after this video, go whip out a couple of very strongly worded emails. But then I'm very protective. And now as I'm protecting Nick as he goes through this system that's fundamentally and profoundly broken, is that I am his protector. I'm his leader. I'm the person who he can let his relief go and know that I've got it handled, that I'm engaged, that I'm not somebody who's going to say, oh, well, all these other things have to happen before I do this. No, Nick is number one. Nick is the one that's broken that I need to really protect right now. All the other things in my life are secondary. They will fill in the gaps in my life. I will get them done. I only require, I know this is going to sound odd, but 2 to 6 hours a night, depending on what my mood is. Just the other night, I was writing an office of the recipient complaint appeal because even they didn't get it right. And I was literally nodding off at the computer. And at some point I was writing the email to send. I'm like, I'm going to have to wait because I just keep nodding off, fingers on the computer and everything. And I thought I'm going to actually and inadvertently hit the send button by accident because I keep nodding off. So just put it aside and I'll finish it in the morning. I was that driven to get the answers into this appeal of an investigator who failed to investigate it properly, because it is complex, it is dynamic, it was overwhelming. It was overwhelming for us to go through. Imagine having to, communicate that to someone and them just going, well, okay, I'm just going to look at parts of this. No, I will throw it in your face. Here's all the F-ups that have happened along the way. And I have become, and I've told everybody now, I am very passionately committed to this young man's success in life. And I am his leader. I am the person who's going to be the person he calls when he gets frustrated and anxious. I'm the person who's going to do all the legwork for him because he can't do it for himself. And people are amazed that I got him through this system as quickly as I did. But that's my business side, is that I know how systems work. I know where systems fail. And I know how to get around systems. And I'm bold enough to get around systems. So that's why I've become this health advocate and for him. And it's difficult. It's taxed even myself as I've gone through it. But now if I were to go through this process with somebody else, I already know, okay, here's what we're doing first. So when I look at a birds of a feather flock together, there's knowledge that you gain by having everybody together. And so that's also protection. So having people together that are have like minds is good for protection. But it can also be a negative. And we see that today in society where the algorithms on Facebook, for example, are excluding out certain information from certain groups so that those groups, political, put out their own narrative. And if you start to like certain posts, then you start to see more of those certain posts. You're not listening to the other side, so that when you hear them, you discount it. When the answer is, guess where the truth is? It's in the middle. This side's not right. This side's not right. So as an independent, for me in particular, I see the middle. I have more clarity because even though I'm listening to Democrats and I get emails from Democrats and I get emails from Republicans, somewhere in the middle, I see the failure. So none of those sides, they're not there to protect you. And that's what we've seen with laws failing us, is that they're, again, my freedom of speech now can be impacted by your freedom of religion. Now we've got two constitutional rights that are bouncing off each other because everybody's offended at each other. And guess what? Politicians want you to be upset. They want to put more laws in. They want to say, oh, I want to protect you. So no, you have to listen to both sides. But if you flock together with only Democrats and you flock together with only Republicans, then you're never going to hear the full truth. And so flocking together can be a good thing, protection. And it can be a bad thing because you are excluding out information that's going to give you the truth. You're listening to one person's truth, which may not be the truth. So be careful with birds of a feather flock together. The other thing about birds of a feather flock together, that is the old saying is, if you want to be a millionaire, then hang around millionaires. It's not going to come to you at first, but the idea is that if you hang around millionaires and you want to be a millionaire, you learn from them. You learn their successful habits. You learn decisions they make. You might be at a lunch with somebody and you meet somebody who's or might be a billionaire, who happens to be lined up with what your business idea is and wants to help self-fund you or hire you. So flocking together can also be this way for you to change your life. Again, it's really hard to change your life. And I'm in that process of having to try to pivot. I didn't like the business world so much because now I'm too degreed to be in the world, and I'm too eclectic in my degrees. Like I said, I have an MBA, a master's in education. Now I'm getting a PhD in philosophy and of aesthetics and art theory. Somebody looks at my resume and they're like, oh my God, this girl's got too many. I'm not flocking with any one flock. Now, because I've got this disparity in my background of all this different information, I can look at things and go, oh, that's full of shit. Why are you doing that? Or this is broken or that's broken. And people want to hire you in business because they want you to be a yes person. They want you to make them money. And sometimes I have not been a yes person where I can say, hey, this is what, this is right. And so my ethics is such that I now I'm escaping that, but that's a hard escape. Your money supply has to come from someplace to be able to exist on some levels. And that's why it's been a hard pivot to say, okay, well, I don't like education. I see it's broken. I don't like business right now because I see it's broken. So how do I pivot my career with the knowledge that I have and turn it into something that's positive? And that's what this channel is part of. And that's what my Hunter Hennessy channel is, that's focused on small business. How can I take this knowledge that I have in my head and help people with it? Because every time I talk and do guest speaking, I'm always like, oh, I had no idea. Oh, that makes so much sense. So I'm sharing knowledge of not just my education, but what I've learned from working since I was 8 years old in concession stands because my parents didn't have babysitters. So what I've done is I'm not as, I don't want to say proud, but I don't hang my hat on my degrees. I'll talk about them because other people think that that's really smart. All I've done is take everything that I've been doing since I was 8 and going, oh, so that's what you call what I've been doing. Okay, I get it. So I'm just learning labels and processes to what I've been doing. And that's made me very successful in my career. But I have hit that glass ceiling in my career because I won't put up with the bullshit. Where a lot of other women, and I'm very proud of women that have broken through that glass ceiling because they've learned how to play the politics that I can't play. I can't do it, and I am trying a different path and it's hard. So trying to flock with a different group of people is very hard. And how you do that. But I'm working at that, and I have different things that I have to execute to help me get to that next level. So the same thing is that if you want something different in your life, like if you want to live a simpler life, then go find friends that are simpler. Don't live with people who are, corporate greed, trying to climb up the corporate channel, that are VPs, that have Mercedes that they're driving, because that's going to create a desire in you that for things that you don't want to work that hard to get. You don't want to compromise yourself to get. The answer is to go find people who live a very simple life and are down to earth, who don't place a value on a Mercedes, and learn how to live from them. Learn how to be able to learn how to be able to, grow your own herbs and save them so that you don't have to buy them at the store. Because if you're trying to be a vice president and put the time in and canning and all that kind of stuff, I'm even struggling doing that. I've got the cans. I bought, tomatoes. I'm having to eat tomatoes like crazy because they're going bad. I just don't have the time to do canning, but I have to figure out how to make time. And if I have to stay up an extra bit later, I will do that because I'm determined to get in the habit of doing it. So it's always that first time of doing it that's always the most difficult, right? Once you do it, you're like, oh, it's not as difficult as I thought. And then you start to build your own, efficiencies in your process to make it easier over time. But it's that first time of doing it. So finding people that are around you that are doing it and are saying to you, oh, it's so easy. Do you want me to come over and help? Or here, let me help you with that. Or, hey, I'm kind of dialing a friend. I'm stuck. Can you help me? Those are the kind of people that you have to decide what kind of life that you want. And you surround yourself with those people because they can help you change your life. They can give you knowledge about whatever it is that you're looking for. So again, if you want to be a millionaire, billionaire, VP at a company, then definitely surround yourself by those people. They can help influence and guide you. But if that life is too stressful for you and you can't handle it, or you're like me, I'm too ethical for the game playing, surround yourself over here with a different group of people that they're not as competitive and they appreciate everything that you bring, and you appreciate what they bring. And it's this symbiotic relationship where you're trading and bartering with them. Somebody who's growing tomatoes like crazy and you're growing cucumbers like crazy, then trade, because then you can make, a salad out of it. So again, birds of a feather flock together. You see it in nature, and we emulate that in our human nature, but we're not, in today's modern society, we're not flocking together with the people that have the same intrinsic values for what we want in life. And if we have a different direction that we feel like we need to go, the fastest way to get there is to surround yourself by people, going to free meetings and attending free meetings, going to, they have free herbal meetings, for example, somebody's trying to get me to go to. That's the kind of thing that you need to do, is surround yourself with the people that are living that lifestyle that you want. And then it's easier to embrace that lifestyle and not feel like you have to live up to another lifestyle because of it. So flocking together is eco-friendly people who want to be better stewards of the planet. I do it because I want to be a better steward of the planet, not because I'm worried about climate change. I wouldn't say I'm a denier of climate change. I'm a realist about climate change, because our climate as a human species, through what's called the Anthropocene, which is the time period that human beings have been making an impact on our Earth, climate has always changed. About 200 years, 300 years is when climate changes. And so I look at not just the climate models about CO2. Again, this is the marketer telling you, look at the sun. No one's putting sun in the equation yet. The sun is the biggest driver of our weather patterns. So again, flocking together, I'm flocking together with people who are giving me good information. That's not this narrative that's put out, because the narrative about climate change is because corporations want you to buy their eco-friendly green products, and politicians want you to keep voting for them because, they're eco-friendly, as they drive their private planes around, and so the celebrities. So I look at all information, even information from fringe scientists, because again, I will remind everybody, plate tectonics was not the geological standard back in the 1970s with the scientist who discovered it. In fact, he was very ridiculed for it. So anybody that comes out with something new is always going to be ridiculed at first. That's why I'm very terrified of putting out my dissertation, because I've got two things that I think are game changers. And it's going to be scary to put it out because it's new, and I know I'm going to be bombarded with people who are naysayers, people who are hypercritical of me, people who think I'm full of shit. And I have to put out my truth and say, if you don't believe it, you know what? Maybe you should just go cryo freeze yourself and come back in about 100 years when my truth is accepted. So again, I listen to fringe because in there somewhere is the truth. And I listen to the narrative, the corporate narrative, or the government narrative, because not that I believe much of it, but I will go read the source and then make my own interpretation of it. So birds of a feather flock together can be a good or a bad. And it's depending on how you use it. So as I would say, use it wisely, because it can help you. And if you don't use it wisely, it can be detrimental, not just to you, but to society around us as well. So anyway, those are my ancient wisdoms for the day. Again, make sure that you subscribe to my channel, click the bell so you can get my next ancient wisdoms that are coming out, and also the philosophy behind it. And then also, that you can get, make sure that you watch the very end so that you can get the code. Go onto my website. I want my logo when you get my merchandise to mean something, so that as you are unpacking yourself from this life, that you have that logo and go, oh yeah, right, being paleo. Back up. What do I really need to do? And let me understand my desires. Do I really need that? That's what I want my logo to mean. So thank you very much for joining me today. Again, make sure that you share this with friends, that we can help become less anxious and less depressed about our society and go back to a healthier society in mind, body, and spirit. But have a great day being paleo.